Hello and welcome to the Patients Engage podcast, Lived and Leading Voices for Better Healthcare, where we feature persons with a lived experience of a condition or a disability and how they're channeling their learnings into improving healthcare. They could be providing peer support or could be advocating for changes in the health system. Patients Engage is a platform that empowers people with chronic conditions and disabilities to engage better with their health and make informed decisions. We also advocate for more meaningful involvement of people living with long-term conditions in health systems decision making. I'm Aparna Mittal from Patients Engage, and I'm speaking today with Ms. Vachasamrita and Mrs. Rashmi Bhasin, who live with lupus and scleroderma respectively. Vachas, as she's better known as, is the co-founder, chairperson, and trustee of Lupus Trust India. And Rashmi is trustee and CEO of Scleroderma India. They both have different rheumatic conditions and both bring different skill sets to their work in patient engagement, community building, and advocacy. So let's start with some background info. For those of you who may not be aware, lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease that can damage any part of the body. It could be the skin, could be joints, could be organs inside the body like kidney, lungs, bones, etc. Um, and chronic means that the signs and symptoms tend to last longer than 6 weeks and often for many years. Lupus typically affects about 5 in 10,000 people, and it starts in people in their 20s and 30s. Some get it even younger, as we will hear more about this. It occurs 10 times more often in women than in men. Scleroderma, on the other hand, is a group of rare autoimmune diseases that involve the hardening and tightening of the skin. Scleroderma may also cause problems in the blood vessels, internal organs like the heart, lung, kidneys, digestive tract, etc. Anyone can get scleroderma, but again, it is more common in women. Typically, people are diagnosed with scleroderma between the ages of 30 and 50. So let us hear from Vachas and Rashmi about their journey from diagnosis to advocacy, the unique challenges from the perspective of patients, and how they support other patients living with lupus and scleroderma respectively, and what they advocate for. One of the things to remember is that, because it's multi-organ, there are complexities in care pathways, and that's one of the areas that we will be focusing on today. So let's get started. Thank you, Rashmi and Vachas, for joining us today. If you can introduce yourself, and maybe Rashmi, if you can go first in a couple of sentences, who you are beyond your diagnosis of scleroderma and its related conditions.
Good morning, Aparna. Thank you, Patients Engage, for having Scleroderma India on this trust. My name is Rashmi Bhasin. I'm 50 years of age. I belong to Bombay. I have 28 years of work experience, which I had to give up due to my conditions. So, just a little, I'm married. My husband he works for a multinational firm. And just a little background on my diagnosis. My symptoms started appearing somewhere in 2009. But in spite of living in a metro city, it took me 3 years for my diagnosis to happen. It was a very, very painful journey, which I often keep sharing on every platform that I get. And I think this was one of the main reasons which I was drawn about to advocacy group right from the start, that I wanted people to know what is scleroderma, what are the symptoms, when should they be looking at a rheumatologist rather than going to a dermatologist or to any other or to a local GP. So that was my reason of being part of Scleroderma India Trust. So yeah, I think that's my
Yeah.
journey.
Okay. Thanks. Vachas, if you can introduce yourself as well, and again, a quick recap of your journey.
Yes, thank you, Aparna. And hello, everyone. Thank you for having us once again. It's been such a pleasure over the years to be engaging with Patients Engage. Well, my name is Vachas, and I really appreciate the question to know beyond my illness, right? So even though since I was diagnosed at the age of 12, that became a huge part of my life and still continues to be. But I'm going to try looking at myself beyond just a patient now. And well, I did my homeschooling, and I started working since I was 16 or so, I unofficially started Lupus Trust India, and then we registered it. So, however, I think I am a musician at heart. I play a couple of instruments. I enjoy singing, and I'm also lately started working in the field of ethnobotany, and so that's who I am beyond lupus.
Right, right. So Rashmi, you talked of, took you 3 years to diagnosis. Can you give a few key challenges that you faced during that journey of 3 years, and, where you saw areas that could be, but I mean, later on, especially when you reflect on it, and then, you say that this is an area that can be improved.
If I talk about my earlier symptoms, it actually started with a lot of pain on my fingertips. That is how it started. Small things like, holding a knife, wearing your clothes, buttoning your pant, they all became a challenge. And, initially when I started going to the doctors, the only feedback I had from them was, oh, you lose weight, you'll be fine. Or, oh, it's carpal tunnel syndrome. Just get a small operation and you'll be fine. And later on, it went to, oh, because you are trying to conceive and you're not being able to conceive, I think you're going into depression. You need to see a psychiatrist. So, in those 3 years, I became a very lonely figure because my family started thinking that, I do not actually have some issues, but I am going through a mental breakdown. It, like, to an extent, my family stopped going to the doctor's visits with me. I used to go alone to see a doctor because I knew I'm not well, but I didn't know where to put down my finger. In fact, I'd done a biopsy in my early results and it said scleroderma. But since I didn't know what's scleroderma, a dermatologist kept on treating me for 1.5 years. So, he used to give me a tube, apply this, you'll feel better, because I was itching, my skin was hardening. So, it was very, very painful. I was just, I was just told that, oh, you're not well in your mind, oh, you just need to lose weight. And that was not the answer. So that left me
Right.
in a lot of trauma, honestly. I was very disturbed. The first time when somebody told me, oh, I understand, I just cried. I could not say anything else. So and this is not only my story, unfortunately. From every patient that you will hear some of this reflecting in their stories as well. So, yeah, I would say it is still a very, very painful journey to get a diagnosis. And once you get a diagnosis, to go to a right doctor is another painful journey.
Right, right. So again, I'll just pick on one from there, right? You talked of the fact that you'd got a biopsy which said, and the analysis of that said scleroderma, and the dermat saw that and still did not treat it as scleroderma or did not refer you to a
A rheumatologist.
rheumatologist,
Yeah.
right?
So, because see, unfortunately, we live in a world where everybody wants to treat whoever comes to them, irrespective of it being their field. Unfortunately, we still live in that world.
Mm.
Right? We don't see doctors referring to another doctors. So I think I was a part of that ring as well.
Right, right. What is, from your perspective, again, a quick recap of, and you said you were diagnosed as a child. So, what age and what were the early symptoms and how did it get to a diagnosis?
Right, Aparna. So, since lupus affects the youth in the most productive periods of their life, and so I was just one among them, right? Uh, Now, my initial symptoms, for all you may know, I think it started probably when I was about 9 years old, but I was only diagnosed at about 12, 13-ish. The transition was sort of on the side of where I was an athletic child. I moved from being athletic to absolutely being, I would do everything in my ability to escape the sun. It's like my
Mm,
body was telling me these symptoms, like Rashmi was mentioning. Uh, and so I stopped participating in sports, things like that. And there was also edema that started showing up in my arms and all of that. But I
mm,
think the first symptom that I had, which we never probably would have looked into it, was definitely lupus GI, gastrointestinal issues, where my appetite started changing, and then of course I was told that it is just poor eating habits, like every other child. And
mm,
so, but deep inside, I knew something was not right. But then at that point, you're also being busy being a child, which has its advantages. So I didn't quite give it a deeper look. But however,
mm,
the diagnosis happened within about, I'm going to say the peak part of my diagnosis was when I developed severe arthritis, which is again not something you associate to a child.
Right.
And though there
Right.
is juvenile arthritis and all of that, I think, joint pain is not something you ever associate to someone below, I think, 50 or 60 almost.
Hmm.
So, fortunately, I think my dad was able to catch on to a lot of these symptoms and said, this looks very rheumatic in nature, even though he has nothing to do with life sciences or biology. He's an engineer, but he caught on to it luckily, and we were able to find out. But that process was, of course, difficult because migraines, since again, like, even though both our conditions are systemic conditions, both
Hmm.
scleroderma and lupus. And so yeah, I think I started bleeding from my nose. I had multiple symptoms, and then it started showing multiple manifestations. And then, of course, when the peak symptoms started manifesting, within a month we were able to diagnose. But I think there's a lot of, like Rashmi just mentioned, there's a lot of, unfortunately, the diagnosis and finding the right doctor takes up most amount of energy and is the most emotionally challenging part.
Right. Right. Um, so what made you, just what made you start Lupus Trust? Where did that idea come from, and what was the original objective when you first started, and has that objective changed?
When I was diagnosed, I wanted to just see another lupus patient. I was somewhere convinced that it was just me who had lupus because nobody even knew what it was. So I thought,
Hmm.
okay, it's just me. And then eventually, there was this notion that it's only a white people's disease, right? Illness.
Hmm.
Then I guess I learned, but when Sunanda Pushkar had passed away, Shashi Tharoor's late wife, then the word lupus came up, and then that sort of made me realize that okay, there are actually Indians who also have it. So I went on the internet like every other teenager would do, and I tried to find anything to do with lupus in India, someone I could contact. Nothing like that existed. So the first few friends I made in the lupus community were all based out of different internationally, and
Hmm.
I realized it felt so nice to just talk and to discuss, and yeah, to just feel belonged and understood, like
Right.
actually medically understood.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think that's when I realized, okay, this is, I would like to do something like that in India. So technically, it all started off because I wanted to do it for myself, and then I realized there's so many more who would benefit out of this. But since I was not of my legal age, that is, I had to be 18 to start my public charitable trust. Until then, I did everything unofficially. I built a community unofficially, uh, and and that's how it began. And today, it's a big community of about 1,200 patients. So yes, that's the journey.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And Rashmi, how did you find out about Scleroderma India? Did it already exist when you were diagnosed and you looked up, and also how did your role in Scleroderma India evolve?
So honestly, it just came in my lap. I would rather say that because when I was searching for it, nothing came on. I couldn't search it on Google. I was associated with the American Scleroderma Foundation,
Hmm.
but I could not find anything in India. Neetu Wadhwa, who was the founder of Scleroderma India, she contacted my rheumatologist on LinkedIn. Normally, my
Hmm.
doctor does not reply, but
Hmm.
that day he replied. And it
Hmm.
was my birthday, I still remember it. And he called me. He said,
Hmm.
Rashmi, you wanted to do something in advocacy. And, I have a lady who's already running a trust. Would you want to talk to her? And that was the first time I spoke to Neetu. And it
Hmm.
just, I would say, I need to hit it off very well because both of us had very similar concerns. As in, we were seeing that, patients are not on the right path because, it's a very, very complex condition. You do not
Right.
understand how it goes, where it goes, what it happens. And it's a very individualistic condition. It's not like what happens to you will happen to me. So
Hmm.
we were seeing the same challenge. And I think we hit a very similar, we were on the same wavelength. And
Right.
unfortunately, that was the time that Neetu started deteriorating very quickly. And
Hmm.
he didn't, I was willing to take up the role. So I took up the role. And so it just came to me rather than me looking for it. But yeah, I'm in a happy zone that it came to me.
Right, right. Um, so as Scleroderma India, what would you say are your top three priorities as a, patient
So,
advocacy
the
base?
first priority that I would have is right to treatment.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it being a women-centric disease, it is still believed that women do not need treatment. So,
Hmm.
I hear such sad stories about, the women not being given medication or not being taken to the doctor because they would need a caregiver. So, the first thing is right to treatment, right for Mediclaim. We still are not covered in Mediclaim. And because the treatment is getting expensive day by day, it has become very vital that, we get at least for the hospitalizations that, that we need, we get covered for that. And the third that I would say this is a right for inclusivity because the features change, the dynamics of a person change. Somehow, we become an outcast. Even in the family, people will tell us, "Oh, please don't go near her. See, she looks different." The
Wow.
family does that to you. So, that is very important that people start understanding just because we have a condition does not mean that we cannot be a part of them. So these are the three things that we are looking forward to that at least I can achieve in my lifetime.
Right, right. Thank you. And Vachas, from Lupus Trust, what is your focus?
Right. So the first thing would be because it affects children. We want to do everything to ensure that there's continued education and that education doesn't get compromised due to this. For which I think the first, when you're a minor, and also when you are up to I think about 20 to 25 in the Indian culture, we are dependent on our family and we live in that ecosystem. So the first thing would be to educate the parents or
Hmm.
their guardians. And the second thing is, of course, with regards to access to treatment with multidisciplinary care.
Right.
Since lupus and scleroderma affect multiple organs in the body, our patients sometimes are caught in not sometimes, unfortunately most times are caught in the crossfire between your primary physician and your specialist. And because when you're, especially during the diagnosis phases, until you've reached a remission, which takes about sometimes up to 10 years even to just to settle down a little bit in terms of your health, you need a pulmonologist in the picture, you need a nephrologist in the picture, sometimes a cardiologist, etc., with your primary decision maker being your rheumatologist. So to
Hmm.
find the right team that's able to communicate with each other, just help the patient and family find the right specialist and logistically manage things. They shouldn't be, say, a patient in Siliguri shouldn't have to go all the way to Kolkata or CMC because that itself starts to worsen their health. So keeping all these logistical aspects, access to treatment and specialists would be the second thing. And the third thing is definitely to do with advocacy, which would specifically be in terms of insurance.
Hmm.
And the next most important would be inclusion in critical illness category,
Hmm.
getting certain manifestations of lupus listed under rare disease category, and the last most important thing being Persons with Disability Act for certain manifestations of lupus, to just helping patients with temporary disability to be able to give their examinations, get extra time to, when you have the PWD certification, you also do get
Right.
reservations. So
Right.
these are the three top priorities of Lupus Trust India.
Okay. Thank you. Um, so, I'll start with you, Rashmi, first. There are many myths, right? Especially because it's a rare disease. It's not a very well-known disease. Lupus is slightly more common, more among older people, but at least it is more commonly known. What were the two or three or the one myth that you would want to address through this conversation and this platform for
A,
scleroderma?
the most important thing, it is not contagious. It cannot be transmitted from one person to another. Just because the person skin is tight, shiny, or looking different, what that person used to look couple of years back doesn't mean that you will get it.
Hmm.
B, it is not hereditary. It doesn't come from a mother to a child or from a brother to a sister. That is not how it works. So, very, very important because, we have these young girls, when their parents say that, oh, should I get my daughter married? Will her child get it tomorrow? They do not
Hmm.
understand. No, that is, it is not hereditary so that is a very, very important thing. And doctors unfortunately fail to communicate that to their patients that, you should be relaxed and all these things. Anyways, it is a very complex thing. And, one more thing on your head, because see, even today, it's a very important thing to have a family. It's not like, oh,
Correct.
it's okay. So,
Hmm.
this needs and contagious is why I'm specific, pushing on this point. I know multiple cases where, we see the women uh, even in the case of Neetu, if I go for, she came from a very, very good family. But, even in, she cried at times because, she used to say, nobody wants to come near me because I look different. They think that, they'll catch it from me. So it's very painful to hear all these things. So, and the most important thing, if we talk about myth, dermatologist is not your primary caregiver, a
Hmm.
rheumatologist is.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Um, yeah, I think the fear of contagion is very, very high across so many conditions in
Yeah,
India. Anything that is visible in a lot of ways
absolutely.
is seen to be contagious, right? So I think that's something that is
Because
something.
see, we also break into ulcers, right?
Hmm.
So we may have a wound which is a active wound. So it's, oh, do you have leprosy? We hear things like these also. So I understand that it's not easy for everybody to understand scleroderma, but yes, it hurts a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, and coming to you, Vachas, are there myths that you have come across that you would want to address?
Right. So first thing is that lupus is not just Vat, as
Hmm.
we think. So that has to be very clearly reinstated to patients. And another thing that we are trying to really spread awareness of is with regards to going by evidence-based medicine,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is modern medicine,
Right. Right.
and that alternate paths with where there is no audit or there's nothing can actually cost you a lot more. And we've seen patients come with multiple organ failure and unfortunately passing away due to such lack of proper treatment. The second thing I'd like to, if it's not a myth per se, but because it affects women mostly,
Hmm.
especially in the reproductive ages.
Right.
Uh, Usually, the first question that we see from families is that can she get married? Can she have a child?
Hmm.
To understand that those are very important things in life. What would really empower the patient is to actually focus on their education, financial stability, and independence over the rest. Right. And the last thing, like Rashmi mentioned, lupus also affects one of the first few manifestations is on the skin. Now, considering there are two kinds, one would be your subcutaneous malar rash, but the other kind is also discoid lupus, which
Hmm.
in many ways can start looking like Rashmi mentioned, like it might look infectious. People might think it's contagious. It causes permanent scarring. Once it reaches the permanent scarring space, then there is no even laser treatments or even skin grafting for that matter may not really work. So
Hmm.
that sort of discrimination and isolation, which leads to isolation, causes a lot of problems. So I think the moment these myths are taken care of, inclusion automatically happens.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really, really sad that pretty much every diagnosis of a woman starts with those two questions, right? Can they marry and can they have give birth, right? So we still have women being valued from their reproductive output. Um, so you've both done a fair amount of work on community building, right? I mean, in some ways it may seem small given the size of the country, but it's a critical element of the work you do, and um, that community not just I mean, it obviously supports each other, but they also, serve as a platform for advocacy. So can you talk about your experience in community building, whether you use digital platforms, whether you used any non-digital platforms, and some of the challenges, some successes, as well as learning that you got from it? So, Vachas, maybe you can start on that.
Sure. Right. So because when you talk about community, fortunately, we're in an era of ease of communication and technology. So with patients already being physically in a tough space, sometimes leading to even short-term disability and all of that, we found the power of digital communities the most sustainable, and in fact it and long term. Uh,
Mm,
and so that's been our primary modality of building our community. However, we've also done a lot of physical events across India, because now
mm,
like actually meeting in person and connecting, that's also something we try to do. However, that has a lot of limitations because of, like you said, the size of our country, and because when it's women largely affected, they're not sent alone. Even if they are in a state to travel alone, they wouldn't be. There are a lot of such concerns. So the one considering our target age group is always in lupus between about 15 to 35.
mm,
That is our highest, yeah. So our average age group. So Instagram and other social media platforms have also helped us a lot. And when it comes to connecting with, say, a tier 2, tier 3 geographic, we have found YouTube to be extremely helpful.
mm.
And that's where we are able to connect with patients, say from in the northeast, or from certain districts that I would have never even heard about in Andhra Pradesh, rural Andhra Pradesh, or Uttarakhand, or even Islampur in the northmost extreme of Bengal. So
Right.
YouTube has helped us with that, because everybody has YouTube. And when so that helps us penetrate into a wider socioeconomic, yeah. So after that, I think the second most important thing that we have been focusing on now lately has been with regards to continuous patient education. So I think patients would like to be a part of the community if they are able to grow, and if they're benefiting from it. And
Mm,
that happens when we are able to give them the right information in a palatable, digestible manner.
right.
And yes, and that also we're trying to do it in about 5 to 6 Indian languages for now, which itself is extremely difficult to get
Mm.
the right translation. And I think AI isn't there yet to give us the
It's
accurate.
getting better, though, I have to
Getting
say,
there.
as
Yes, I am
yes.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I will really improve our ability to give them access to the right information in a language that they understand. That's also how patient inclusion can be done. So that's also one part of it. And lastly, we've also been giving caregiver support, because caregivers have to last for a while.
Mm,
At least
mm.
in the first 5 to 10 years, they play a crucial role in supporting, rehabilitating, caring, loving, and just being there with the patient. And
Right.
through that process, we have seen how that enables recovery, that speedens recovery, and with psychosomatic aspects of it, like the neuropsychiatric aspect of lupus and all, we've seen that it's much less when there is that ecosystem of support even within the family. So
Hmm.
yes, this is how we've been working on the community building aspect.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Vachas. Rashmi, your experience in community building, as Scleroderma India, and did you all try both digital and non-digital platforms? So, or, and again,
Uh,
your learnings there.
yeah, so agree with Vachas on most of the points except for the physical part. We've not done anything non-digital for two reasons. A, for the cost.
Hmm.
B, with scleroderma comes in, they will need a caregiver because most of our patients are either physically impaired or, they are on oxygen support due to
Hmm.
ILD. So they would
Hmm.
need a caregiver. And unfortunately, that does not sit okay with most of the patients that that travel comes into the picture. So we've not looked at a physical aspect, but digitally, yes, we are present on all the social media platforms. We've done a lot of videos on YouTube, which has given us quite a good reach, because again, as Vachas said, people do tend to surf a lot through YouTube, and a lot of the patients come to us through the YouTube videos that we've uploaded. So yes, digital, of course, has played a very, very big role. We've done uh, some sessions in different languages earlier, but again, scleroderma unfortunately is not evolving anywhere as of right now. We are
Hmm.
still there where we were a couple of years back. So doing anything new would just be very repetitive. So in recent years, we've not ventured that. But yes, as far as being active on social media, yes, we are very, very active. And I think that's helped us in the community building. And
Right.
we also make it a point to talk to the patients about management of the disease, where what I believe is very important. This is a
Hmm.
very important aspect of any disease, not only scleroderma. So
Correct.
we do a lot of work on that. We have a lot of sessions apart from rheumatologist. Where we get in physiotherapist, we get therapist for your mental state. We get people to talk about your diet, about your skin.
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
get a lot of people, sometimes we get patients to talk about what has helped them. So
Right.
that helps. And if we talk about caregivers, yes, I make it a point to talk to the caregivers, as in to explain how, they can deal better with the situation, whatever is there.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think, and you've also done sessions on makeup, I think, right, as Scleroderma India. So,
Yeah, because the skin is so see, ultimately everybody wants to look presentable. So we
correct, correct.
have it is very important for people to gather that confidence that I look good when I go out. So
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
you have clawed fingers, and you have dark skin. So it obviously becomes a problematic area for them, and women need that feeling of looking good.
Correct. And if it improves their self-confidence
Absolutely,
or,
why not?
their self-esteem, then why
Absolutely.
not, right? So,
And you have enough of makeup in the world today to do that for you.
right, right. Excellent. So, both of you have talked of how women are, kind of larger parts of your community because they're both anyway at higher risk of lupus and scleroderma. So what are the issues that you need to address more as a PAG because of the fact that, you have more women in the group? And second, does it change the way you interact with those members of the community? Do you play a different role, or do you play an additional role as a community leader or a patient leader? Vachas?
Okay. Yes, absolutely, Aparna. So when it comes to women in the group, since that is a majority, we also make it a point to keep a safe space. Uh, so we have different city groups in our community, and then there's a patient leader within, and usually there will be one or two doctors who volunteer to be a part of these groups based on the city they consult in, and etc. So that way we are able to actually help with certain aspects which they may not even be able to like ask with their own family members. being present in it. So the gynecologist aspects to the skin angle of things, like Rashmi said, it's your largest organ. For some reason, we just that slips out of our mind that you go out. There's invisible disability that's there, I understand, but when it also shows on the skin, it really takes a toll, especially when it's discoid lupus. It's pretty nasty. So for which we have now made a small directory of companies that mid-range pricing for wigs and other aspect of it. But I think it calls for me to actually learn from Scleroderma India and see how we can actually work on some of those angles that really give women that confidence to go out there and work. In fact, I was just talking to a patient recently. She lives in a nearby district here in Kerala, and she said that I was given a job in the as a receptionist, but lately my skin has gotten so bad that, and I the alopecia, she's completely bald, and so she said that I could still do a wig, but what about my skin? I'm not able to cover it up in any way. So I think things like that also affect your ability to go work, and then there's already an element of physical dependency to a very high degree. So when there's ability to do other basic things like continue education and earn, that also earns you respect, that earns you dignity, and that earns you a place in your family. And that's what we have seen. When patients are able to earn and afford a caregiver and medicines, they're functioning on a different level altogether. The recovery is a lot better. I think the second most important thing would be with regards to the family setup, and we've seen a lot of divorces. Uh, since we're talking especially about women, they end up having to go back to their their own family. Divorces, sometimes they just abandon entirely. So that happens a lot, and so in many ways, what we're trying to do is also to change their belief systems altogether, that life does not start and end with just marriage or reproduction, which is a lot more, that's a lot more internal addressing that needs to be done. So we share success stories, we do all of that. However, it's still long way to go.
It's a work in progress. Right. Rashmi?
So scleroderma, if we see, the normal age for it to start is somewhere in, early 30s, going on till 50s, 60s, whatever. So this is the prime age for any person to be doing anything in life. Let's just keep the family aspect aside, even if you are working. So, we've had cases where they were working on international platforms, and, as soon as they put in a rheumatic condition, they were downsized or asked to take a smaller role, or, not being given the accolade that they deserved. People, they are basically, it's very dissatisfying that, you are not, you are struggling with your condition, you're struggling in your workplace. Now this is one aspect. Now you come to your family side. See, for every person, whether, it's a man or a woman, ultimately everybody wants to have a family. Even if there is no child involved, you need that support, support from your husband or from your in-laws or from your parents. But unfortunately, with scleroderma, we don't see that support coming in. Not from your spouse, not from your parents, not from your in-laws, 100%. So for a husband to accept that my wife may have certain limitations, not easy. I was very fortunate, but most of them are not. So, and then when it comes to suppose the patient has an onset of early ILD, always advise that, don't look for a family, or, if they have multiple IBS issues, again, do not look for a family. So, that leaves a very, what should I say, a sense of dissatisfaction that, you're not doing well, even where your profession is concerned, or you're not doing well, even where your personal life is concerned. So it's a very catch-22 situation. Giving advice comes very easy, but it's not so simple. It's very easy for me to say, I understand. No, I don't understand, because it's a very, very, very challenging thing. And it is not only related to, 2 tier or 3 tiers. It is related to everywhere. Even for the people staying in the metro cities, it's the same thing. The
Right.
mentality does not change. The fundamentals do not change.
Right.
So,
Right.
getting people to be a good caregiver by itself is a very, very big challenge. God forbid you may require some kind of transplant.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
even managing the everyday tasks is a very, very big challenge. I would say it's not easy because, you know, uh, I would say out of 100 cases, 60% go towards ILD, PH, RA. So you have multiple, you have overlaps. So
Right.
it becomes more challenging to manage all these things. So honestly, I have learned to keep my mouth shut on a lot of things, which I was
Hmm.
not doing earlier. But yeah.
Hmm. Right. Um, so, as you reflect on your journey, both of you, of building a patient community around a systemic or a multi-organ condition, which primarily affects women, um, would you be willing to share what were some of the mistakes you made, or, have you kind of changed strategies along the way, or changed gears and said, this is not working, we need to do this instead? Anything that would be kind of useful for other patient advocacy groups to consider, or even within your own groups to consider. Vachas?
Okay. So when it comes to, I think mistakes, I think the certain very minor parts of it, because we were a growing organization, and when usually patients come to you just desperately hoping for help in multiple aspects, but some of it is definitely in terms of financial support. So some of the, I think, things that we learned over time was to find resources within the state government, where we act as a body that helps them connect with them. We verify things. Uh, we give them certificates, medical certificates, etc. So one of the simple examples would be the Chief Minister Disaster Relief Funds. So we thought that it was for us to get the donation and then help patients out. Then we realized that up until we get our ATG, considering we're a public charitable trust, which makes things even more harder, we realized that we could actually connect them to these resources that are already willing to donate
Hmm.
and support. So it need not come from us. So that itself opened a lot of offers and opportunities for us to give our patients and our members.
Right. Right.
And I think the other aspect of it, we also learned, is that one, with regards to involvement in a community. So I think I remember Kirtida from Sjogren's mentioning how, they're not sometimes not interested to engage with the community, and then that we realized that was also because of they have family commitments, so many other things. So what we did was to form these little units of patients where they're able to have one-on-one conversation. So even if you may not be engaging within the group, you
Hmm.
have a companion from the group who is there with you. And then we saw these beautiful friendships emerging within the group, where they would go out, sometimes travel on vacation together, and things like that. That also worked out extremely well when it came to getting patients to connect, and also as an organization getting them involved. And lastly, I would say, when it came to, in a non-profit organization, getting resource mobilization, getting work done, something as
Hmm.
simple to getting our website constantly updated, to responding to emails, to so many messages on social media, etc., for which it was initially, it took us some time to sense the pulse, how to find the right resources, human resource for all of this. And then we realized, for the volunteering aspect, which I know Rashmi was also mentioning, how challenging that is to get the right volunteers. Otherwise, everything in many ways falls upon her. So one thing that worked was collaborating with other organizations, like South Indian Medical Students Association, SIMSA, and other medical colleges, where we found volunteers and interns who were here to get a certificate and grow for their MLE,
Right.
and etc. And so these were the three aspects that really, really changed the landscape entirely for us in terms of patient community engagement and building. So this is what I would also say to explore for other
Right.
organizations. Yeah.
Right. Right. Thank you. Thank you. That was very helpful tips over there. Rashmi, uh,
Mistakes, I would say the initial mistakes that at least I made as a group leader, because, I got attached to patients,
mm,
which, which should not be the case, because, you tend to make wrong decisions then. So, that was one of the biggest mistake that I made as a group leader. Apart from that, what has worked for us is basically, we started having twice in a month. We just gather on a Sunday evening on Zoom, and we just talk. We don't talk about our illness. We just talk about what are we learning, what are we doing new, a new hobby that we've picked up. Whatever you've done, you showcase it on that platform. Somebody's taken up knitting, showcase on that platform. Madhya Pradesh recently started doing a lot of, they had a lot of funds which they were allocating to patients. Somebody mentioned that on the platform, which proved to be beneficial for a lot of patients. So, that has worked quite well for us, that, getting the community together on just an odd Sunday just to chit chat. That's really worked
right.
well for us.
Right. That's nice. Yeah. That's and so often we forget that, right? That for a lot of the patients who are in these groups, they're also looking for these groups as social bonding and not just
Absolutely.
as a disease awareness platform,
Yeah.
right? So, and both of you mentioned examples of how that connection worked. So, I guess in the last, as we start to wrap up, what are the factors that contributed to your success as a patient advocacy group? Rashmi?
I would say a lot of coaching from Litu, because I had no experience per se. As I said, it was just a sudden thing which happened to me. I was not even hoping to be on a managing part so soon. Unfortunately, it happened, and then I had people like Vachas, Kirti, the Shalaka to help me guide the way. How I should. Till date, I send them messages. Are what should I do in this situation? Because I
Mm,
was very unaware about the whole thing. So, yeah, but it has made me a much better person in terms of it's made me much patient. I'm much aware to, not, before I got connected to Scleroderma India, it was how much problems do I have in my life. But I think
mm,
it's made me stronger. So, I'm able to do most of the things now because I no longer think about my condition. So, yeah, I would say it has evolved me as a person. That's what Scleroderma India has done to me.
thanks, thanks. And in terms for you, Vachas?
Right. I would say one thing that really helped us stay in the game and continue and in fact even grow was finding the right mentors. Whether my co-founder is Dr. Padmanabha Shenoy, that changed everything for us because from day one we had someone absolutely brilliant, extremely compassionate, and he was a part of the team that allowed us, that helped us also, present ourselves in various forums and things like that. Another such person would be for me was Dr. Rajagopal, M.R. Rajagopal, Padma Shri Dr. Raj, from Pallium India. Uh,
Mm,
I requested him. I think I was trying to think of what is it that I long term envision for Lupus Trust India. Yes, one thing is to sip community support, all of that, but I needed to go experience, and so I went there, lived with the team at Pallium for 1 month, where I got to
mm,
know various departments, the operational angle of things, to funding, allocation, find the right resources. In fact, finding the next set of leadership, that was extremely important for me, and I think I learned a lot from Neetu especially. And in fact, the second most important thing for me is the colleagues. We forget that this is still work, it is still work, and it is like a full-time job, in fact
mm,
more than that in many ways, because there's so much involved in it. It's like your own child, your community, and it's also work. Even though we may not quite be earning out of it, it may not be giving us that income, So I think when it was with Neetu, for example, she wanted to conduct some events, and she asked me, how do I register this? I shared our trust deed. She was able to replicate that. And she said, regarding funding, I said, you can reach out to Dr. Sapan. She said, oh, I didn't even know that was an option. I said, Dr. Pandya is wonderful. He would be there to help us. So I drafted a mail for her, and then she sent it, and they received the funding too. So I think sometimes having us, few of us like me right now, Rashmi and the team within the Rheumatology Patients Alliance, is that we hear different suggestions, different inputs. We are able to connect them with. Now we've been able to introduce palliative care into it because of collaborating with Pallium India. So one is the
Right.
right mentors, the right colleagues. I think these two things, and then the last would be the team, which I was lucky to have Dr. Shanoy as a team member and a mentor. And
Right.
so these two things gave us a lot of credibility and access.
Right. Right. And finally, to both of you, as we wrap up, right, the one patient advocacy effort that inspires you, and it can be from anywhere in the world, or that you want to know more about, or that you already know a lot about. And closing comments, if you can just do both. So, Vachas, you're starting.
I think one organization that I was deeply inspired by was MS India, Multiple Sclerosis India, how journey where they were able to find the right set of public interest litigators and find the right team. Because patient community and everything is great, but if you are able to address the root cause of problem, which is no access to treatment and this sort of inclusion, most things actually eventually start to fall in place. So
Mm,
that's definitely been there. And then of course Pallium India,
mm,
when I went there and I learned how the volunteer system was there, and how that helped in advocacy, and how Dr. Raj led the narcotic drug acts and the accessibility to pain medication with the 2014 amendment that happened in the Supreme Court, was so
mm,
important for me to see how it is done, because you don't know where to start, you don't know whom to go to, how to even begin with. And
right.
yeah, so to get those right resources, and that also I think was very inspiring for me. And I think lastly, just been reading a lot of books by some of the most wonderful doctors, right from I think Dr. Oliver Sacks to
Mm,
reading Dr. Rajagopal's book, and also even Dr. Paul Kalanithi, who passed away, of course, to see how doctors have been able to also doctors who have been patients, but also or those who were able to really come to the level of patients and understand these are the three things that have majorly inspired me.
right. Thank you. And before we move to Rashmi for her inspiration, any final words, closing comments from you?
Right, Aparna. I'm just very thankful that we get to continue doing this. And I think it's so important that our voices can only be amplified if we come together like this. And so that's so important. And so I'm just very thankful that I get to, rely on, say, Rashmi for even emotional support to, professional advice, both of it. And lastly, I think I just want to end with, like I said the last time we spoke, to just quote John Lennon. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. In many ways, sometimes I look back and I think, oh my God, what a fool was I to have dreamt so much back then. But yet a lot of it happened.
Happen.
So I think it takes an amount of unrealistic dreaming to even get into that. So I just
Right.
would like to tell all volunteers and community members that, you don't have to be realistic with regards to the dreaming. Just join us so that we can do more of this work together. Thanks,
Thank you.
Aparna.
Thank you. Thank you, Vachas. Rashmi, your inspiration and your closing comments.
My inspiration basically comes from three things. One is Neetu, of course. Neetu was a force apart, till her last week of her being here. She was more concerned. Oh, Rashmi, have you spoken to that patient? She was in the ICU, and from the ICU has to get these messages or voice notes.
Yeah.
One was that. Second, when I saw the working of Myositis India, in a very short time, they have managed to do a fabulous job. They have a community of 800 plus doctors, and they're all doing one-on-one consults with the patients, and they are managing pretty well on the funding part. So they're doing, and they have got a very, very good volunteering list as well. So I guess Myositis India, the way they're working is very, very good. And I had worked with Rotary a couple of years back in their blood donation drive. I was involved with them for 2 years. And, that gave me a sense of how to work in the community. So,
Right.
probably these are the three reasons why I am attached to Scleroderma India. Just leaving on the closing note, I just hope, that everybody gets the treatment. It is so sad when I say this, it's so sad that, people are not getting treated. So, I think I would just like that day when everybody gets the right amount of medication, right amount of treatment. For me, I think that would be a great victory. Uh, Rest is all as time comes.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rashmi and Vachas, for taking the time. I think there's been so much to learn in terms of, the growth of both of your patient advocacy groups, Lupus Trust and Scleroderma India, and how it and at the end of the day, as both of you talked of the hope or the dream for a scenario where we have the right to health, the right to dignity. I think those are things that we can never I mean, we always underestimate them. I don't think we ever overestimate them. So we do need to keep that center stage. And I think, as both of you have highlighted, that given the fact that these are complex conditions, these are multi-system or multi-organ conditions, it is important that there are clear, navigational support and care pathways so that patients can get access to the treatment that they deserve and they need, right? So, and I think also to the audience, it's also important that we recognize that when we speak with patient leaders, we're trying to highlight the contributions they bring to the healthcare system, as well as how they need to be an integral part of the healthcare system design, because their contribution is beyond just holding hands and kind of providing emotional support only. So thank you so much once again for taking the time between managing your own conditions, managing your communities, and kind of trying to keep multiple fires burning. So once again, thank you, Rashmi and Vachas.
Thank you so much, Aparna. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Pleasure. Yes. Thank you. Looking forward to more